And just like that, we're off and running. Hope you're tied on. Day number 2 here at Gulfstream Park West. Ron Nicoletti, Jason Blewett alongside. Rain, rain, go away. No sloppy track blues, even though we are sloppy and no turf.
Yeah, it looks like we're caught in some kind of rain over the last couple of days. So we're going to start the day, as you mentioned, sloppy main track, no turf course racing, and got to spend the day at Gulfstream Park, and it was really nice. You know, we were there yesterday. It rained a lot. What I noticed was a lot of horses were coming from off the pace, so we're going to mark that down today.
Yeah, we'll see if we have a different track. I walked away from yesterday's opening card at Gulfstream Park West here at GPW thinking that the track, for the most part, was fairly even and unbiased. And if you got the right pace or had the right horse, had the right trip, and a horse that liked the conditions, you were probably going to run well. So we'll see what shakes out. Overall, we had 4 winning favorites from the 8-race card at GPW to start the action. We'll give you a little rundown of what's on tap today. Of course, another start time of a little after 1:15 p.m. and another 8-race Thursday card on tap as we look out high above the action here in Miami Gardens. All quiet on the main track thus far. The dollar rolling super high 5, Ronnie, began in race 6 yesterday. Not the case today.
Starts in race number 1. We only had a couple of scratches, even though the race was moved from the turf to the main track. So early pick 5 right away.
And that'll coincide, of course, with the super high 5. Bunch of 5s, high 5s all around in race number 1. A bit later on, in fact, race number 3 is our day number 2 of the Rainbow Six here at GPW. A carryover of just under $2,500. Ronnie will be giving out a ticket momentarily here on Gulfstream Park West today. And then we wrap it up, Ronnie, with race number 4. I like calling it, and it's fitting for Florida. This is kind of like the early bird special, late pick 5.
Late pick 5 and early bird special is a good way of putting it. So make sure you're aware of when those exotic wagers start so you don't get shut out.
All right, no need to get shut out. We'll have Pete Aiello calling all the action today at Gulfstream Park West, and we dive into the first race a little after 1:15 p.m. in Miami Gardens, and we have an off-the-turf race, Ronnie, to start the action. This is also, of course, the launching pad in Thursday's early pick 5, and what are we doing here?
Let's show you my ticket here. We got a very affordable ticket, and you'll see I'm going to go 3 deep in here with the 2, 3, and 9 because of the move from the turf to the main track. But you see back in race number 5, I just thought the 7 horse was the right horse to beat in this afternoon. So I singled there in race number 5, and that is Cowtown Spirit. So a very affordable $12 ticket to start off the action today on Thursday.
And with the scratch of Celebrity Star in today's 5th race, you were looking at an overwhelming favorite with Cowtown Spirit. That's a horse down the road. I singled in the late pick 5 today from our Gulfstream studios. Now, moving on to the first race, we are going to show a last-out turf win and therefore turf sprint replay for Grubert. The good news with him, and he's going to come way down off that current 5-1, there's very little money in the pool. I think, and although he might be a little better on turf, he's proficient on both the dirt and the turf, and that could be good news breaking right outside the number 2 Jack of Diamonds.
He's going back to the main track. He followed that second place finish. That was on that fast track that afternoon with a commanding 3-length score, as you see on the turf. So he showed his versatility, and probably is going to be the logical choice once the smoke clears in race number 1.
Now, he breaks right outside the 2 Jack of Diamonds, who has got to take that solid. Of course, he's in form, and his last couple have been good. He's looking for 3 straight wins. Can he switch this son of the late Wildcat Air to the main track? And he's going to have to not only do that, Ronnie, he's going to have to hold off Grubert, who's probably basically going to be breathing right down his throat.
And the angle I used why I still kept this horse on top, I was thinking of switching him after the race went to the main track, is, as you mentioned, because of the current form. Stepping up to the next level, looking for its 3rd consecutive victory at the distance, albeit those last 2 were on the turf. But it's Kathleen O'Connell, who trains year-round at Gulfstream Park West. Edgard's Eyes, so we're going for 3 in a row. So a little hometown cooking I'm going here with the number 2 Jack of Diamonds. Grubert, you got to have on the ticket for Grubert, for all the reasons you mentioned.
And the 4 Monkey Money may take some play thinking, and I think the thinking is that this horse may sit a pretty good trip, although much like Grubert, I think he's a little faster and more comfortable on the turf. He's run well here and there in littered races on the dirt in the past. We'll see if he can make his presence felt in race number 1. On to the second as we stretch out. We go 2 turns at Gulfstream Gulfstream Park West in the opening leg of Thursday's early pick 4. 1 mile to 16th on the main. Pretty tough 62.50, and I say it's a tough 62.50 because you've got 2 horses in here who wound up in the same race, who each are likely to be in sub 2-to-1 territory and have a lot to like in the 1 Bama Bound, the 3 Chauvanis. Why don't we go back a few starts to May 25th and look at the big drop down here, Ronnie, in Bama Bound.
Bama Bound, this one a 7-time winner at this distance, 13 races, 7 wins. That just tells you how consistent and hard knocking this horse is, and today will be the number 1 Bama Bound.
I just like the fact, I think this is a reasonable and realistic drop in class for a horse who was claimed. Keep in mind, in this win back right around Memorial Day weekend, was claimed for 62.50, and although he had run well here and there and a few other tough spots for his current trainer, Angel Quiroz, I think his last 2 have been fairly lackluster, and it's time. They took a shot in some elevated optional claiming starter races. It's time to put him back in where he belongs, and he should be a handful running for 62.50. He's also very proficient over wet tracks. However, he's likely not to be on the lead. That is a roll, and in fact, the pace setter likely going to your top selection, the 3 Chauvanis.
Chauvanis moved to the Marcial Navarro bond after that clay makes his 2nd start since returning from about almost a 5-month layoff. He set that pressured pace. He finished 2nd. He was beaten a half length at the same level and distance. I thought after performance, it was pretty good.
And for what it's worth, in dirt routes, Marcial Navarro has solid stats that is, generally in first off the clay moves. But in dirt routes, this is a trainer who's done some fine work and has batted at a real high percentage. Check out this stat. Hot off the press here at Miami Gardens. 9 for 23 over the last 60 months. First off the claim in dirt routes, and Chauvanis, who gets a Misael Jaramillo, is likely to be on the point, and he's got that stat in his corner at nearly 40%.
Makes me feel better. I got this one on top, but I gotta mention a horse in here, and that's the 4 Storm Warnings. 8 for 10 in the money at Gulfstream Park West. 10 starts, 4 wins, 3 seconds in the 3rd. Hoping to change the, get back on track when it changes venues. And George Handy, Tyler Gaffalione handling the homecoming. I love the fact that Tyler Gaffalione is getting on for George Handy. And if you're not aware of George Handy, 90 years plus, I'm rooting for Storm Warnings. Horse for course play, aptly named with all the rain we've been having the last couple of days.
It's a double, I should say, elder statesman situation. Not only do you have Storm Warnings, who's the oldest runner in the race at the age of 9, you've got the one and only, the incomparable George Handy, and he'll give a leg up to Tyler Gaff, as you said. We move on to race number 3 after, of course, we take a little breather here on this live edition of GP West Today. Ronnie and myself coming back your way from our Gulfstream studios.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet. We are racing.
Coming down to the finish with Fort Lauderdale catch him. They're not going to catch him. Fort Lauderdale, the winner. He went clear of the stop, and he's coming home, turning handspring. Fort Lauderdale, brilliant in the statement monster. What a thriller in the British Cup Classic. Fort Lauderdale gets deep, nose and nose to the wire. Fort Lauderdale has won it.
And we're back on this live Thursday edition from our Gulfstream studios here on GPW Today. It is Ronnie and Jason. Good to have you with us. We hope you've got your rain slicker out, and as I said at the top, no sloppy track blues. And I hope, Ronnie, you should be alive in that early pick 5 by the time the opening leg of Thursday's Rainbow rolls around. You've got the big 2 in race 2. You used 3 logicals in the first, and therefore, what are we doing in race 3 on?
Well, you'll see race number 3 this afternoon, and I went 3 deep, and in race 4, I went 4 deep, 3 deep. I thought those were tough, but race number 5 this afternoon, I just used the 5 Cowtown Spirit, 7, Cowtown Spirit, and the number 5 Melody Palmer. I didn't single there, and then I singled Blings Express. I think with the move to the sloppy main track for Blings Express was the right move, and then you see the rest of the progression. 8th race taken off the turf, a real head scratcher.
Race 8 is a race I kind of quipped, and you'll see it momentarily when I give out the late pick 5 here on the show. You may want to get the dartboard out or cozy right on up to the all button. If you were ever going to buy a race of 2-year-old maiden claimers, the nightcap today at GPW might be the one, and that reminds me of your best-selling handicapping book, right? The all button?
The all button for fun and profit, and that's certainly where it comes into play in that last race. I mean, it's just a lot of guesswork, but that's what makes this Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5 you're going to be showing fun because, you know, if you can get a couple of singles early on, you take all in there. Maybe
Definitely.
you get a horse that pays $80 or $60, which we had a few do yesterday.
Yeah, no kidding. The winner of the second race, Miss Lotus Flower, was 30-1, paid over $62 to win race number 2 at Gulfstream Park West on that opening day card. We'll see if there's some bombs in store. We also had 4 winning favorites on Wednesday. But moving on to the cast in the opening leg of the Rainbow 6, we've got 3 and up filly and mare $10,000 maiden claimers. On the main, of course, going 5.5 furlongs. In a case of trainer Victor Barboza Jr., just having that comfort and strength in numbers. The rail runner flying the star, who is likely to be hustled early beneath Josie Gomez, and the one they've got to beat, and maybe from the outside, Flying Queen has finally found the right spot.
She highlighted her versatility when switching from 8 consecutive races on the turf to run. I thought a well-meant third at this level and distance on the main track. I think this is a perfect spot for her. You mentioned Victor Barboza Jr. got his go-to jock, Emicil Jaramillo, in the saddle, and you're absolutely right about the one flying to star who is from that barn. Josie Gomez is going to get this horse going early, and it could be an old Barboza exact.
All right, GPW's 4th on this Thursday afternoon. Already time for the early bird, late pick 5. We are off the turf, 1 mile and a 16th over the main track. These are 3 and up, $12,500 claimers, and they'll meet on the dirt going 2 turns here. Although you do have a scratch-reduced field in this opening leg, you do have some horses who have run okay on the dirt in the past. For me, though, Ronnie, in race 4, it all boils down to who is going to excel and prefer the sloppy track conditions today. I went 3 deep there because my opinion on who might handle it the best is kind of up in the air. Huge favorite in the form in race number 5 of Cowtown Spirit. She will be a major odds-on chalk, and to me looks almost unbeatable on paper with the scratch of the inside runner, Celebrity Star. Easily the best 2 dirt horses in race number 6. You had singled in your Rainbow, Ronnie, Blings Express, who's done some good things on the dirt. I'm also using the 8, Nick the Card Shark, who's a dirt horse, and they get to play his game today. It's a 3-bagger for me in both race 7 and race number 8. I love the field in race 7. Those horses have combined to win 39 lifetime starts. My one opinion on the race is I think piloting, even with the wet track, is vulnerable today. And wrapping it up with the 3 inside horses, time to fire away with those darts in the last race. But let's talk about the scratch-reduced field. What do we have, 5 or 6 in this opening leg of Thursday's late pick 5? Dizzy Gillespie's run okay on the dirt in the past, as has the number 4 Regal Force, Modern Tail, and the 7 Bingo Bango Bongo. And you state Modern Tail your best bet on the turf. You have kept this one on top.
I kept this one, and I'll tell you why. Drop it to this 12-5 level after facing tougher, and that was in 6 races after returning from that layoff in April. Includes a troubled 7th place finish last out, steady repeatedly. But this horse is run okay. You look a couple of starts back, led 2 starts back, he ran an okay third in the slop against $20,000 optional claimers. They're dropping his horse. The reasoning for keeping on top, I just think the class drop is going to help this one. I love this horse on the turf. I'm not sold on it, as you saw. My ticket went deep in this race. But I just thought that the 2 back showed an affinity for a track with some moisture in it, so I kept number 6 Modern Tail on top of my ticket.
And I actually kept the number 10 horse, Pickett's Corner, on top. I had originally had on the turf Lucky Kitten on top. Pickett's Corner second at a price, and I said, you know what, let me just roll the dice here, because Modern Tail, although that horse can win, is definitely better on the turf. Regal Force can win. He's way better on the turf. Bingo Bango Bongo, one of your old buddies who's danced a lot of dances, he's better on the turf. So why not just take a horse who's off a trainer change, first time out to Armando de la Cerda? I like that quite a bit. And talking about that hometown, home field advantage, this horse is based at GPW. And I always, talked about this yesterday with Acacia, back back north, moving, say, to the Big A for 6 months, no, it's not a drive that's going to take you 5 hours per se, even in New York or Florida traffic. But I just prefer horses, much like those that were based at Aqueduct when we were running at Aqueduct. It's just an easier time walking out of their stall and basically lining up.
Well, if you read my analysis for the first week every year at Gulfstream Park West, when we switch over from Gulfstream Park to Gulfstream Park West, it's one of my main angles that horses that have trained on there, have been there all summer long. I like that angle, and I use it until they really play each other out. And horses that were just running over here, we see how it works out. But I want to go back and talk about my old buddy Bingo Bango Bongo. He's got a really good record on a wet track. He's got 5 starts, a win, 2 seconds and 2/3. 5 for 5 in the money on the wet track, and I think he benefits if the track plays a little bit like it was playing yesterday. Horses, if they're in the right spot, they could win. So that's just an off-track angle that I use with Bingo Bango Bongo. Talking about senior citizens, he's certainly one of them.
Oh, he is, and he's probably still pulling residuals in, getting that check every month after his appearance with you on Gulfstream Weekly over the summertime. We like Bingo Bango Bongo. We like the connections involved, and he's a tough old 9-year-old warhorse by Sarland. Good stuff there. And I know he'll stay the trip. He might not be the fastest early, but if the others get a little tired and have a tough time handling the slop, he's got the ability to just gallop them into submission when they're saying, mercy, mercy.
And if you take a look at this horse, he looks fantastic. He's 9 years old. He's as straight as can be. He looks great. So you see him on the track this afternoon, and always going to root for Bingo Bango Bongo. But that aside, this horse runs really well on a wet track.
Might be looking at the shortest price favorite on the program in the race after Bingo Bango Bongo in the 4th. And, of course, talking about Cowtown Spirit here in the 5th. She is a dirt horse after all. She's got the leading trainer from the recently wrapped up Gulfstream Park Summer Meet in her corner. And from our Gulfstream studios, we'll check out her last win, first off the claim for Victor Barboza Jr. back on September 2nd. We'll talk about it. We got a little stat to show you as well. Generic second off the claim numbers for Barboza. Wait till you see this number here, Ronnie. This is a trainer who's done fine work in this category.
Well, let's check out this stat here, and it's Victor Barboza Jr. It's something around 50% or something
yeah,
like that.
11 for 22 were straight-up second-time starters off the claim. When you narrow it down and get a little more finite with winners last out, he's 4 for his last 10. But these are horses, this is telling me these are horses that aren't just giving you, say, one giant improved effort off the claim, first off the claim for Barboza, and then it's like a balloon that's just slowly deflating. These horses are able to come back and give you another biggie, and it may not matter today because she might just be way faster and way better than these.
And the point you made before with the scratch of the one celebrity star, I think really sets it up.
Who I picked on top. I thought she looked a little interesting. First off, the trainer changed to Zadie, but with her gone, man, I think Cowtown Spirit looks as solid as a heavy favorite could look.
And that was the reasoning we both singled in one of our tickets near Melody Pomeroy, who's in the ticket with Motions First, but I think the race goes right through Cowtown Spirit.
Indeed it does. On to race number 6 this afternoon as we head down the stretch from our Gulfstream studios in Miami Gardens. A Florida-bred restricted, A other than, non-winners are one, 16K optional claimer, off the turf, 5/8 on the main track. And speaking of trainer Ralph Zadie, who scratched Celebrity Star, his barn who's got one in the first, they've got Arcat Daddy from the outside, who's currently sitting at 7-2 in the opener. They've also got Blings Express, who although this horse has run okay on the turf, for the most part, he's a dirt horse.
He's a dirt horse, and great point, because I had him on top on the turf, but I had to make an excuse to get him on the turf. I had to look back. I saw he ran well on the turf in the past, but once it went to the main track, I said, Blings Express. I just think, Jason, he's too fast for these horses.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at the replay for Blings Express back on April 26th. This is a horse who just hits really hard on the dirt and has done some fine things. He's danced a lot of dances. Geez, on the heels of Bingo Bango Bongo, the 9-year-old in race number 5. You've got this 8-year-old here by Too Much Bling out of a Devil Is Due mare who can handle wet footing and has just been running against better. He has not started since June 24th. He was too close that day to a pace that was a mega meltdown. He's supposed to win unless Nick the Card Shark just freaks today in the slop.
Well, Nick the Karchuk won the hand with this one, one coming off the turf, because you really had to make excuse for him to run on the turf if it had stayed on the turf. So Blings Express, you mentioned that he's a 15-time winner on the dirt, and he's 5 for 8 in the money on wet tracks, and I just think he's the one to beat in there. But Nick the Karchuk, might have been the right move, you adding that horse to your ticket in there, because Nick the Karchuk certainly benefits with this move, as we mentioned, to the main track.
I think the good, even at this stage, Blings Express, he's just a better horse than Nick the Karchuk. I think Nick the Karchuk is going to need a career best effort. He's also going to need Blings Express, by the way, is based at GPW. That's a feather in his cap, at least theoretically going in. He's going to need that tough old 8-year-old to take a step back. 7 Calling Disco might be in the mix, and man, I thought it was far back to everybody else.
Yeah, really it is. I mean, Calling Disco on there, but you sort of another horse that you sort of have to figure out how he's going to run well on the track condition we have here today. So I just thought Blings Express, as you saw, my ticket was the one to beat. With that said, when we get to the next race, this one you got to go a little deeper.
Indeed you do. Let's talk about the next race. This might be the best race, and I would say this honestly, even if it was sunny out here in Miami Gardens and we were fast and firm, this is a good crew. If you're a fan of the game, I think you've got to really tip your cap to the field assembled, or that will assemble, in today's 7th race at Gulfstream Park West. A 2-turn mile, 3 and up, high-priced allowance optional claimer. By my count, you've got 39 combined wins with this field. And I'll tell you, the 2 on the outside, Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best, have accounted for 26 of those 39 wins. Up first, why don't we check out the last out win just 18 days ago by Mal Guapo, who's never, ever been better.
And this was the 2nd consecutive victory. Now he's going to try the 2-turn mile today. As he, as mentioned, won this race. That was the $50,000 perfect season. And that was going that 1-turn mile across town. I just think that this horse is the one to beat in there. But when we talk about Jaden's Best next, you can see why you got to use this one on all your wagering tickets.
Now, both these horses, Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best, are in the running for some of the best claims we've seen all year in South Florida, and certainly pinned down to the summer meet. Mal Guapo lifted back by trainer Oscar Gonzalez right around Memorial Day weekend for just $62.50, and the horse is just in tip-top form, handles a wet track, and looks good. And what becomes, I think, the real interesting key of this race is, what do Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best do from the outside? Because they're both horses that have a high cruising speed, and Jaden's Best, much like Mal Guapo, is looking for 3 in a row. And here's his last out effort, just 2 weeks ago, back on September 21st.
Well, he certainly lived up to his name recently. He followed his 6 3/4 length state bred optional claiming score. He comes back, and another open length score. This horse has been in incredible form, but you're right. We got to see how this race plays out. Who's going to go to the leader? They're going to look each other in the eye and set it up for a horse, maybe like the 3 horse in here, Piloting, who was second just last year in the $100,000 Classic Preview at the distance right here at Gulfstream Park last November. So those horses run well on this course. We'll see how it does on this turf, on this main track, how this horse runs today.
He's the horse, say, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, would have commanded, at least in my mind, a clear favorite status. Now, it's a little murky. I don't know if we're dealing, and for full disclosure, the good news for Piloting and his connections and his backers, he really likes a wet track. That might move him up. I honestly think in his current form, Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best are just better than he is. I think, although Piloting really seemed to overachieve last winter, last fall, he's kind of been on a steady with layoffs as well. I just don't know if he's as sharp as he once was.
Maybe it's as simple as pace makes the race, and as we mentioned, we see this race play out where Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best run their best and get hooked up. Maybe it sets up for a horse like Piloting, but you saw my ticket. I only used Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best.
Now, Zipping, I'm curious to see what the only 3-year-old, he's the youngster, the up-and-coming whippersnapper in race number 7, what he can do. He is running on fairly short notice, ran just a week and a half ago behind Croy in that off-the-turf. the Bears' Den. But that was a race that came up legitimately fast.
Yeah, it was a good performance by him, but he's going to have to knock heads with these older horses this afternoon. You gave him all the stats, how many wins these two horses have compiled together. So a big step up. I think you got the logical two with Mal Guapo and Jaden's Best, and if things fall apart, maybe piloting gets a share.
We'll see, and Zipping will try to take on, in career form, a real salty crew of some older horses. Moving on to race number 8. This is the Thursday finale here at GPW, and we wrap up the action with an off-the-turf 7-furlong, 2-year-old $20,000 maiden claimer. A couple of these have started before. They didn't obviously run too well. You're almost, I don't want to say forced, but for me, I just wanted the two really well-connected firsters. Kathleen O'Connell's got the 3 Kate Marco Drive, the first fall from a dam, who was 0 for 3 in her career. Edgar's Eye sticks around to ride her, and Galligan, the son of Midnight Loot, who, although there's some turf in the family, horse, at least aesthetically speaking, is bred to handle the dirt and could be a late double sweep for Oscar Gonzalez with Mal Guapo in the 7.
And I used the 4 AP Dioro and drop into this 20 level after making a minimum mode faded, but that was its $35,000 a career debut on the turf. I like this horse's connections better on the main track this afternoon. Just one of the horses, you know, we basically got the top 4 in there. But I want to mention that the horse you have in third and I have in third in here. And as I went back and looked, this one, El Guerrero Azteca, who finished second to an impressive win. I know a horse you really like, and that was Coal Miner's Son. That was in its debut at $16,000. He was claimed that afternoon. They stepped him up, broke awkwardly in that race at the $35,000 at this level at the 7-furlong distance. I think the drop is going to help this horse. And if I had to go back, I might move this one up a little further.
I think you would have picked him on top,
Yeah,
actually,
right, yeah.
if you could go back. He's a must-use. I included him on my late pick 5 ticket. Although he has not really run all that well, even with that second in a very slow race, first out behind Coal Miner's Son. Hands down, this is the easiest, theoretically, race he has started in on the main track, and he's already got a couple races under his belt. So that's it, just 8 up, 8 down on this Thursday afternoon at Gulfstream Park West. Good to have you with us, everybody. We'll kick off a little before 1:15 p.m., and I know our man upstairs, Pete Aiello, coming everybody's way with some scratches and changes.